We are in the deep freeze, bitterly cold conditions across the central and Midwest. Probably the coldest outbreak since January 2009 or maybe 2014 for Illinois. Here at the ranch in Texas, we're down to 29 degrees, but that cirrus you saw, it's trapping a little bit of the long wave radiation, and the temperatures are holding steady, but those clouds are going to be moving on off to the east, and you can see those right there. Those are on their way east. So we're going to have kind of a period of clear weather, and that'll help the temperatures drop here in this part of Texas pretty quickly. Low temperatures across the U.S. last night. Pretty cold readings here. Bismarck, they set a record for the date, minus 31. There was minus 33 reported in Linton, North Dakota. Lyman at minus 27, that sets an all-time record, coldest since 1984. And the Chicago, the Bears played against the Green Bay in one of the coldest home games in their history. It was 11 degrees at kickoff there, and a bunch of crashes in North Carolina, Raleigh, Charlotte area, and 18 inches of snow for Breckenridge, so that's good for the ski season there. We're 2 days away from the solstice, so this is pretty typical of this time of year. Here in Texas, just teens and 20s, zero line, pretty much running from Amarillo to Joplin, Missouri, and then up to Peoria, Illinois. This is the temperature anomaly map, and basically the purple areas are well below the seasonal normals, and you can see that extends all the way down to Mexico. So we're looking at pretty much the front being outlined along this line. We know that temperatures are below normal for Arizona, Utah, and Nevada. So that tells us we need to be looking a little bit south for our cold front. And then we see it's warmer than normal in British Columbia. So possibly a warm front through here, and maybe some downslope conditions occurring in Alberta. So this is the satellite imagery we have right now. You can see a little bit of an active polar front jet well to the south. And a lot of this brighter color, this enhanced green and blue, this is cold air, not clouds. Now, some of it is clouds, and it can become very difficult to kind of differentiate the two in cold locations like this, but you can use loops. And you basically look for what's moving and what's not. So in this case, right in here in Saskatchewan, we can see these clouds moving, some clouds moving in this part of Manitoba, but this up here is remaining pretty much stationary. So this is going to be snow cover and cold ground, and then your clouds are going to be right there. So if you're forecasting up north, that can be important for that area. Okay, let's go over the surface analysis for today. This is the thickness and isobars, looking at a front from the Canadian Maritimes all the way through Florida and down past South Texas. And then it looks like it's hung up in the mountains here and then goes across to Baja California. Remember, we're looking for that to be pretty far south. In fact, looks like maybe a cold pool aloft over Southern California. Then in British Columbia, warm front located right there, new system coming inland, and occluded front going into southeast Alaska right there. So that's probably going to be a weather maker for Western Canada there over the next couple of days. And then the tail end of that will be moving into Washington and Oregon. Okay, so I think we're ready to look at the forecast, and the GFS has been off. As we saw yesterday, there was a discrepancy between the Canadian and the GFS model, and it looks like the GFS is trending more towards what the Canadian model had. So let's get this all set up to run the analysis, and I'll just take a look at the chat and say hello to everybody. See Andrew and Grant, Ron, Jeff, Mike, Sarah, or I don't think Sarah's here. Sue, Mike, and Jeff, did I mention you? Andrew says cold in Peoria, -3. Yeah, that's way down there. And 6 degrees in Big Bear this morning. All right. Let's check out the forecast now. High pressure across the Mississippi River Valley, 1043 millibar high right there. And since the high is mostly covering the U.S., we're getting the westerly return flow across Canada. So that's going to be downslope in that area right here. That's a little bit off the top of the map. So this is a downslope regime right there. And then here we're going to see a lot of cold air trapped in the valleys of the Rockies and Great Basin area. And here just another very cold night until the warm advection gets started in this area. And that'll expand and move eastward. And then we should start to see things start warming up a little bit during the day tomorrow. So the first place to warm up, that's going to be the Permian Basin, the Midland, Hobbs, Roswell area tomorrow. So we'll run this forward into tomorrow's forecast, and we're starting out, I guess, the new work week. Monday looks a lot like today. There's our lee side trough from Colorado up to Montana. Elsewhere, pretty quiet. See another Pacific system starting to move inland. Then we go up to that was Monday, and then we go up to Tuesday. Okay, there we go. There's Tuesday. The lee side trough right there, still hanging on in Colorado, and here comes the next system. Remember, you want to look at those thickness lines, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thickness lines right there in the Snake River Valley, northern Nevada. So that's our next system coming inland. So that'll be significant as we get towards Christmas. And here it comes across the Rockies. Actually, looks like that's our first system. It's already out to Chicago, so by the 22nd, this is going to be mostly an upper air system, looks like. But it will give us a reinforcing shot of cold air right there. That moves very quickly. And then we get another system coming inland on the 23rd, and I think that is going to be the one that affects us on Christmas. And it looks like the banding of thickness kind of picks up in Nevada, a little further south. So this will be a frontogenesis zone right down in this area. And now we see it come together. This is on the 24th at very early in the morning. There's our new system right there. Developing over Nevada, and this time, instead of developing in this area in South Texas, the GFS is going for a more northerly track. So this is on Christmas morning. Looking more like snow for Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado. And this new forecast brings the system more north. Another shot of cold air into Texas on the 26th. Then that heads up into the Great Lakes. Looks like a pretty decent storm system up there. Mostly liquid precipitation in the Appalachians until the backside comes around, and then mostly upstate New York and Pennsylvania on the 27th for some snow showers. And here comes another system that moves rapidly to the southeast on the 28th, and that comes into the Texas area on the 29th, and there it is. Since this is trending south a little bit more than usual, we have to kind of be aware that it may track a little further north, because the GFS does have kind of a cold bias once you get out past 200 hours. So that's the scenario it's going for, another northeast coast storm system on the 30th. Then another system going through Chicago, Illinois, Missouri on the 2nd, and that's about as far as we got on that model. But here's what the European model is going for. We haven't looked much at the European model. We don't get very much data from them, unfortunately, since they're not very keen on sharing their scientific data. But here's the map for December 23rd. High pressure across the eastern U.S. And here's our lee side trough. And this looks like the next system coming towards Texas. And there it takes, starts developing exactly about where the GFS had it. And then it tracks it across Kansas on the 25th. And then up to the Great Lakes, a little bit further north than the GFS. But that's a little bit better than the discrepancy we had yesterday. The only main difference you see here is the outbreak after Christmas of cold air. You can see when that system comes through on the 25th into the Great Lakes, not much high pressure in its wake. In fact, it looks more Pacific. 1024 millibar high over Texas. ECMWF, European model, going for a much different picture. Here's the system going to the Great Lakes. And watch what's in the wake. Instead, we have an Arctic high moving southward, 1044 millibar high. So this would be another cold blast. So it's going to be interesting to see which model gets this one right. This is on the 27th, big cold blast here. And we'll take a look at the Canadian model and see what that's got going on. Here's the system going to the Great Lakes on the 26th. And it's doing about the same thing as the GFS. So we have a bit of a discrepancy there. Don't know what the actual pattern will be, but we'll find out probably as these models converge over the next couple days. Okay, then we'll do a short forecast training block. And for this one, I'm just going to cover very quickly just the jet streaks. Haven't had much time to prepare, but I should go ahead and do one of these anyway. When we're looking at jet streaks, we tend to have areas of upper-level divergence and convergence associated with those. So the flow through the jet streak is moving this way. The left front quadrant, that tends to be a divergent quadrant, and we see upward motion because we have spreading apart of the air. So we're removing mass aloft at this level. And when you remove mass aloft, you have to have upward motion to compensate for that. So this tends to be an area of clouds and rain and enhanced precipitation and destabilization, and a similar effect in the right rear quadrant. Then the other quadrants, these tend to be subsidence, so we get downward motion associated with those. And the reasons for that has to do with the supergeostrophic and subgeostrophic flow. Basically, air that accelerates into these jet streaks. Initially, it's going very slow, and it gets drawn into the low pressure area. And then it finally starts accelerating. So you tend to get this air piling up, like here in the left rear quadrant here. So this piling up, this adds mass to that particular quadrant, and we get downward motion. And with that, we'll get gusty winds at the surface, clear air, good visibility, lack of clouds, and pressure rises. And similar situation in the left front quadrant. We have air that's moving very quickly, then it becomes supergeostrophic coming out of there. And because the tendency to move this way is relaxed, it tends to move to the right. So we get kind of a spreading apart, divergence in this area, and that removes mass aloft, and then we get upward motion. So that's kind of how that works out. And that's about all I want to do for that. I want to kind of keep these just short and sweet, and maybe we can go into more detail on this on a special workshop. Anyway, I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow night.